The NFL draft hasn't even happened yet, and people are dropping rankings all over the place. So do you agree with the experts and the consensus rankings they're putting together? Or do y'all think that you can do better with your rankings? Let's break down the consensus right now. Listen, anybody talking or watching fantasy football rankings in April are degenerates, myself included. But if you miss the action of drafting, head over to Underdog and start drafting with us right now. If you sign up for an Underdog account, use code word headliners and deposit $10, we're gonna give you a free 2023 fantasy football draft guide. Not only that, but Underdog is gonna match whatever you deposit up to $100, and we're gonna put you in a drawing to pick something from Jake's office. So make sure you get signed up now and get ready to draft with us over on Underdog, code word headliners. I think the first two guys up, everybody's in agreement with. Christian McCaffrey, the new Diggs in San Francisco, looked good at the end of last year. And Austin Ekeler, another huge fantasy season for those that believed in him for a second straight year. Now, we do know that Ekeler has talked about wanting to be potentially traded, but as of now, he's still in LA, which honestly is the best scenario for him. After a disappointing 2022, the consensus number one from last season is at RB3 right now with Jonathan Taylor. For me, a lot is going to depend on what they do in the draft and who their quarterback is. Saquon Barkley put up some good numbers last year, but he was volume dependent. We didn't see a lot of those big plays from him that we had seen in previous years. Does that change in year number two in this new offense? We'll have to wait and see, but for now, I think he lacks a little bit of upside and is really more of a safety player. Josh Jacobs is going to have a new quarterback under helm this season. Is that going to mess with the huge season that he put together last year? We'll have to wait and find out. Jimmy G should do just enough, but will Josh Jacobs be able to put up those huge numbers that we saw? Again, maybe he's a little bit more volume dependent than we would like. Kenneth Walker at number 6, I think, is a great choice, and I'm surprised that he's not higher. This is a guy that absolutely balled out at times last year. He's in a run-first offense that's got weapons to stretch the field. This is a guy that could have a huge season. I'm higher on him than this. Bijan Robinson doesn't even have a team yet, and they're already ranking him at 7 overall. Why don't we pump the brakes and wait to see what team he lands with? Nick Chubb and Derrick Henry at 8 and 9. These are two guys that are safe running backs. Derrick Henry has had upside in the past, but how is that offense going to look this year? Nick Chubb, one of the safest running backs that you can get in fantasy football, but he lacks a lot of the consistently high upside games. He's going to give you 100 yards or close to it every game, but if he doesn't score a touchdown, you're looking at 9 to 10 points. He's going to be lower for me this year. Tony Pollard at number 10, coming back from a major injury last season. I think we need to be a little careful with Tony Pollard to make sure that this is a guy that might even be healthy to begin the year. Travis Etienne and a really good offense that broke out last year. Now they've got Calvin Ridley coming back. Things could be wide open for this guy to exploit huge holes this season and put together big games. Again, another guy that's coming off a big injury from last year, already inside the top 12. I think it's a little bit early to be putting these guys this high, not knowing what we're going to get come week 1. I cannot believe more people don't have Ramondre Stevenson higher. 13 overall at the running back position. Come on, experts. I know you know better than that. I don't care that the New England Patriots in the past have run these tandem backfields. Ramondre Stevenson, he's the guy. His backup, James Robinson, do we really think that he's going to take a ton away from Stevenson? Heck no. Grow a pair, experts. Put him in the top 10. Najee Harris's foot injury last year is really what led to a down performance the first half of the season. He picked it up towards the second half, though, but can Kenny Pickett take a leap to help Najee Harris? That's going to be the big question mark. I don't even know where Dalvin Cook will be come week 1. Lots of talk about him potentially being released. This spot could change dramatically over the next few weeks. Aaron Jones right now is robbery in drafts. This is an offense that does not have a clear-cut number 1. Their best wide receiver was streaky at best last year, and they've got a first-year starter. That's right, Jordan Love potentially taking over for Aaron Rodgers if that trade goes through. You don't think Aaron Jones is going to see a ton of dump-offs this year? Oh, baby, give me Aaron Jones to absolutely have a monster season. If J.K. Dobbins can stay healthy, he probably outperforms this rank of 17. But quite honestly, until I see it, I'm not buying it unless he comes to a huge value on draft day. Joe Mixon all the way down to number 18? I'm actually okay with that. And I understand after last season why you don't want to go higher with him. If you get him as your RB2, okay, but I'm not even drafting him as my RB1. Dameon Pierce had a great rookie season, but the concerns that we had with potentially breaking down are what came true. This is a guy that didn't get many touches in college, and we had to ask ourselves all season, would he handle the workload? And at the end of the season, it was just too much to bear. Cam Akers absolutely sucked to begin the season. I can't put it any simpler than that. But to end the year, he was helping guys win fantasy leagues. Can he help you win a fantasy league this year? If you draft him later, maybe, but not as your RB1. Miles Sanders, the new starter in Carolina, an offense that wants to focus on running the football with a rookie quarterback more than likely? Are you kidding me? How are we only going RB21 with this guy? The fact that he isn't higher absolutely kills me. The Lions moved away from Jamal Williams and they brought in David Montgomery instead. And you can bet your hindquarters that he's probably going to see the same amount of volume that Jamal Williams saw last year. They do not trust DeAndre Swift. And speaking of DeAndre Swift, the experts still got this guy inside the top 24. He's going to miss at least 3 games for you. He's going to be banged up in other games, and we also know that, yeah, he might score 3 touchdowns in one game, but he's going to give you 25 rushing yards, maybe 30 through the air, and 0 touchdowns a majority of the rest. Javonte Williams inside the top 25 drives me nuts. I love Williams. He's a great player, but his offseason recovery has not gone as planned, and he doesn't look like he's going to be fully healthy for week 1. If it happens, great, but ranking him here right now, I think is probably getting a little overzealous. James Conner to round out the top 25 for the consensus rankings. Whatever, it's fine. It's the last running back in the rankings. But let me tell you one thing. Arizona, I don't know what type of an offense they're going to have, and you expect them to rely on James Conner next season when Kyler Murray is gone? I think you're hoping for a little too much. Even again last year, this is a guy that could not stay healthy. When he gets the touches in the game, that's great. But depending on who their starting quarterback is going to be, and no DeAndre Hopkins potentially, I don't know if I'm investing in James Conner. I gave you a blurb on each of the top 25 consensus running backs, but let's hop over to my way too early rankings and see where I differ the most. I've got Kenneth Walker all the way up from number 6 to number 3 in my rankings. I think this is a guy that not only is going to have the volume for consistency, but is going to have the opportunity for huge games and huge upside. That defense looks good. They're going to address that defense more than likely at their pick in the draft and get even better. I've got Derrick Henry all the way up at number 4 from number 8. We've seen him succeed on an offense that hasn't been great or dynamic in the past. In fact, their biggest playmaker, A.J. Brown, was a guy that would have big plays every now and then, but consistent huge plays was not a thing while he was in Tennessee. This is still going to be a run-first offense. The GM talked about it over the offseason. I don't expect him to be traded, and I expect him to have another big year. Anybody that has Ramondre Stevenson outside the top 12 running backs, I'm sorry. I don't trust you. I couldn't do it. The writing is on the wall for this guy to have a huge year. We already saw a part of that breakout last season. This year could be insane for Ramondre Stevenson. Invest, invest, invest. I've moved Josh Jacobs from 5 to 9 just because I think there's a few guys in front of him that could have some bigger years. And I don't know if Jimmy Garoppolo can push the ball down the field the same way Derek Carr did. I think it could lead to some inconsistencies for Jacobs. I've got Aaron Jones at 11 from 16. I love the guy this season. He's going to see plenty of work in the passing game. This isn't an offense that has a clear-cut, consistent wide receiver 1, and Jordan Love is going to need need somebody out there that he can trust to get the ball to. Aaron Jones is a dynamic playmaker on the ground and through the air, and I think he's going to become the focal point of this offense. Would you believe it? I actually have Nick Chubb lower than the consensus, and I already mentioned why. The guy is going to give you 100 or right around there yards per game, but if you play in half PPR leagues, even with Kareem Hunt missing this year, they've added more wide receiver weapons. That doesn't necessarily mean that just because Hunt is gone, that Chubb's going to see more in the passing game. I would love for that to happen, but for right now, even if you get 100 yards without a touchdown, you're looking at 9 or 10 fantasy points. Nick Chubb has to score to be high upside every week. I'm substantially lower on Breece Hall and Tony Pollard, and it's not because I don't like them. I love these guys, especially Tony Pollard, but the problem is we don't know if they're going to be fully healthy for week 1, and if they're not, it could be a few weeks before we really start to see them get going, and that could hurt their overall rankings on the year. If you were to say, Kyle, what would be your rankings from week 5 and on, then at that point, I would talk about them inside the top 12. But for now, until we know more, these guys have got to be lower for me. Miles Sanders up to 17 from 21. This is an offense that, again, is going to focus on running the football, and Miles Sanders is going to be the starter. Chuba Hubbard's going to get some work as well. They're going to have a rookie quarterback, and whatever rookie quarterback they take will probably end up being just fine. But they've lost DJ Moore. They've brought in Adam Thielen. Is that really that big of a difference? Yes, it is. It's a little bit of a drop for me, and because of that, Miles Sanders could still see some inconsistencies, even though the volume will probably be there. A couple of guys in my top 25 that you don't see on the other side, Tyler Algier and Khalil Herbert. Now, these guys are going to be totally dependent on who these teams take in the draft, because I bet you both of these teams are going to draft a running back. Do we see a guy like Bijan Robinson or Jahmyr Gibbs, or do we see one of the later round backs? That's going to be the biggest key. If they don't take anybody that could just come in and unseat these players, I expect both of them to give you about RB2 performances all season long. Yo, it is way too early to do rankings, but we're doing it anyway because it's a good discussion point and we can see the difference between pre-draft and post-draft. So don't take these too seriously, but it's a good discussion point. Let me know down in the comments below what differences you have from the ECR and where you would move some players. Hit that like button, and if you are new here, you've got to subscribe to the channel. Peace out, Headliner Nation. Stay safe and healthy, and I'll catch you all on the next episode of the Fantasy Headliners.